Hello, friends. Take a seat by the fire and get cozy. It's time for a story from Mr. Sleep Tight. For my first true story on my channel, I thought I would tell you all about the scariest night of my life. A quick backstory on myself. I was raised by my maternal grandparents. My grandfather worked as an on-the-road trucker, home on weekends, on the road during the week. My grandmother was retired at this point. We lived in a split-level house a few minutes' drive from the western shore of the Chesapeake Bay. On a weeknight, a couple weeks before Christmas, my grandmother, uncle, and I were eating pizza and building some shelving units in the living room. After eating the pizza and finishing our DIY project, my uncle left for the evening. I gathered up the empty pizza boxes and paper plates, took them outside, and put them in the trash as it started to snow. After being in the house for about 10 minutes, my grandmother and I were sitting in the living room watching a movie. Suddenly, the storm door on the back door began to slam over and over again. At first, we assumed it was just the wind, but when I looked out the front window and saw snow falling in front of the street lamp not far from us, I could see that the snow was falling straight down, so there wasn't any wind. The other thing that made this particular incident bizarre and scary was the storm door did not have any closing assisting devices. No chain or spring, no piston closure, so even if something had caused the door to open, there would need to be something forcing it closed again. Needless to say, we were both thoroughly freaked out by the situation. My grandmother first thought it may have been my uncle coming back to get something he forgot, but it wouldn't explain why he didn't knock. My grandmother quickly called the police while I raced to the other doors of the house to ensure they were locked. The banging continued for what felt like hours. Finally, we saw the red and blue lights of the police through the curtains of the front window. As they made their way down the driveway, the banging stopped. The officer came to the front door, and we invited him in. We told him what had happened. He said he would go take a look around. We waited inside as he walked around the property. He came back to the front door and explained that he had walked around the entire property, but didn't see any footprints in the near inch and a half of snow, or any coming from the back door, or off the deck outside our kitchen door. He gave us his card, and told us he would be staying in the area. If it happened again, give him a call. He left, and we went back to our movie, and relaxed. Maybe 10 minutes later, the banging started again. This time louder and even more intense. My grandmother immediately called the police. They said they would be sending an officer back. We waited. In less than 3 minutes, the officer was back. He had come into our yard, no lights or siren, yet before he made it even halfway to the house, the banging stopped. The officer came into our house again. This time he had called for backup, and a second officer showed up only a few minutes later. Both officers explored our property for almost 20 minutes. They both came back inside and explained that neither of them had found anything, but again said, if it happened again, to call them immediately. The new officer left first. After he left, the original officer told us that what was odd was that on his way to our house the second time, he had made a point to keep the window of his cruiser open, and that he could hear the banging of the door as he was driving up the street just before getting to the house, and that he heard it stop as he had gotten most of the way down the driveway. He was expecting to see someone go running from the deck or from the back of the house as he pulled up, but there was nothing there, or evidence of anybody having been there. After he left, we were a bit hesitant to relax, but after half an hour had passed, we finally started relaxing. It never started again. We told my grandfather about the incident when he came home that weekend. In spite of us both having 2 police officers' business cards and having never changed our story, he never believed us. We never told him about the night we saw something in the sky when driving home from getting dinner, but that's another story for another time. If you like the story, like and comment this video. And for more, subscribe to my channel. Until next time, I'll keep your seat warm by the fire. And as always, sleep tight.